Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVey, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. And today we're talking with Ray Feurstein. Welcome, Ray. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Julie. Good to be here.
So glad that you're going to share with us today. You have quite a few fascinating experiences to share. And if you wouldn't mind, could you just let us know a little bit about who is Ray?
I'm 68 years old. I have 3 kids. I'm married 43 years, I think now. Ooh. 43.
Cool.
And I was an engineer for 30 years in communications. I'm a musician. Okay. I've been in electronics since I was a kid, 7, 8 years old. I started fooling around. So just kind of perpetuated through my whole life. And I'm also a retired law enforcement officer for the area, and an author of a few books. And
very nice.
What else?
Very nice. Okay, well, if you wouldn't mind, maybe you could just share your first near-death experience. What led up to that?
Well, I was 5 going early on to 6. I was about 6 years old. And I was being the typical younger brother and had decided to take my sister's dollhouse, I wish I kept it because it's been antique now. But I decided to play demolition derby with it out in the backyard. And of course, that didn't make her feel very good. And I was reprimanded, and I was told to go out back. And it was a really nice fall night. It was late October, and it was just a nice night out. And I had to go out in the backyard, pick up all the pieces, put it where the garbage is. And as I finished that, I started walking into the back door, and I reached up for the handle and grabbed the handle. And a black wasp must have been in the handle, come out and stung me behind my right ear. Okay. And because I whacked it, and then I had it in my hand, basically it was dead. And I knew what it was. I dropped it on the ground. And by the time I got from the back porch to the living room, I blew up like they described me as being like the Michelin tire boy. It was all, and my eyes were all squinky, and my sister turned around, looked at me, she screamed, "Oh my God." And they got a hold of my father, I think was away at the time, and my godfather came over. They put me in a police car. I don't know what was going on with no ambulances, but they put me in a police car. And the last thing I remember, in front of the house, the police officer turned around and said, "How would you like to have the sirens on?" I said, "Oh, that's great." And that was it. And I passed away there and on the way to the hospital. So what I was told was that, and that was the last thing I remember before waking up. But what they told me happened during that time that I was gone in this world is that they packed me in ice to keep the swelling down. I tried all the revival things and actually pronounced me dead on the table. But what happened to me was I was like I was in a gray-black tornado. There was no sound, but I could see it. It was all around me, and I was kind of like sitting in it, like riding around at the top, looking around. And there was these voices that were over here saying stuff to me. And I tell you, I don't know what they were saying because I wasn't paying attention. Now, I'm 6 years old. There's not much of the world that I knew at that point in time. And I'm looking at the what do you call it? Area out in front of me. It was just pitch black, but with little spotlights, like say 8-foot diameter spotlights, perfectly focused in one area, all over the place, like polka dots. Oh, that's what I remember. And so I'm traveling in this thing, and I can feel myself swaying around. I feel myself floating, and I was like, "Oh, kind of neat," I had no idea what happened and why I was there, and I wasn't afraid. at all. There was no fear at all in this. And these voices were very calming, and they were over here, they're over there. And it was, I got the feeling it was like male voices that were talking to me, but
Mm.
could have been anything. We tooled over to this one spot. And in that spot were three kids. There was two boys and a little girl. And I focused on the little girl more, and they were playing with puppies.
Mm.
Now, around the perimeter, I could tell there were people there watching. It's almost like you could see the feet, but you knew that there was somebody there, but it wasn't, they weren't saying anything. And it was just me and the three little kids. And I was in this thing, this little tornado-like thing. And I'm looking down at them, and they're going, "Hey, how you doing?" And the little girl was dressed with a beige sundress with ruffled collar and little blue flowers, which I described to my mother as, she told me they were forget-me-nots, which
Mm.
were kind of interesting. And she had little black patent leather shoes and white socks on. So I was sitting there, she goes, "Come on down." And this voice says, "No, you can't do that. You can't, you're not allowed to do that." And the little girl looks up, she goes, "Well, okay, here, take one of the puppies." And she raised it up to me. And as I went to do this, I went back, and I got this jolt and this tone, this like, ooh, when died out, And
Mm.
next thing I knew, I woke up, and there was a sheet was over me because I could see the lights through it. And I took the sheet, went like that, and sat up because they had pronounced me dead and threw the sheet over
My,
me. And there was a nurse standing here and a doctor. And I went, "Where's my mommy?" And it scared the living crap out of
I'm
her, I think.
sure.
And she screamed, I'm sure both of them had a little shepherd's pie in their knickers, you know what I'm saying? Because they were
Mm.
like,
Oh
like
my
one of these things.
goodness. Right.
And that's the only thing, it was the last thing I remember on that. I went home. I don't remember going home. Um,
Hmm.
the next few days, they really don't remember much more after that. This was it's like it happened yesterday. That's how clear it is in my
It's so
mind.
interesting that you remember this so clearly, but do you have a lot of memories when you were 5 or 6 years old?
I have, it's funny because I posted something to see who, I think it was on your site too, to see who remembers what's the first
Oh,
memory that you
right.
have. And it was very interesting to see everybody was around 3 years old, if you noticed on there.
Hmm.
And mine was the one thing I remember, I was 3, was in Hudson Falls, New York. And it's on Lake Michigan where we were living at the time. And I stepped down to the beach and stepped on what they call a beach thistle. And
Hmm.
they're about this size, and it poked my little toe, and I mean,
Mm.
it hurt a lot. And I remember my father pulling it out, a little drop of blood come out. He wiped it clean, and that's the end of the memory.
Memory.
But
Interesting.
that's, little moment in time.
Right. Right. That's interesting. Yeah, probably around 4 for me, I think.
Yeah.
My
What was it?
earliest memory. Well, this is about you, but I could tell you later. But
Sorry.
no, that's okay. I know. People want to hear about your story, not me. Um okay, so nothing else. So that was, I'm sure your mother was and your father were absolutely relieved. I just can't even imagine going through that panic with my child.
I,
So,
no, I don't remember much. I mean, other than, I was, yeah, that was about it on that, 5 years old. I know I stayed
okay.
away from bees or
Oh my
wasps. I mean,
gosh. Yeah, I'm sure you would probably develop some kind of phobia. I would have after
yeah.
that of bees and wasps. But okay. So please continue. Your next.
Oh,
So so you've had 2 near-death experiences,
yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Um, I was 17. I had asked a girl to the prom,
Okay.
and it was like 3 or 4 days before the prom. And that Friday before the weekend, the Friday before the Friday, I got a stomach ache. And, I mean, everybody, gets stomach aches, you get a little flu, the grip, they used to call it, the stomach
Hmm.
virus, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, and it was just not, it wasn't fun. And I was in bed. I had thrown a fever. And my father was using milk of magnesia
Hmm.
mixed with ginger ale.
Mm.
god awful taste. God awful. But and they used it a lot. And when we had, and it always
Yeah.
helped. This didn't. And aspirin
Okay.
didn't help. And I developed almost a near 300 degree, 103,
103.
103 degree temperature. And then he finally took me to our doctor.
Okay.
And he's no one saw me. He goes, take it to the hospital. It's his appendix. I must have had. He was really good. I liked him. Dr.
Wow.
Casella. I have to say, he's not around anymore, but he was
He
a good country
immediately
doctor.
knew.
Yes, he ddid.
Wow.
Um, Never even made it into his office. Right? So father took me to the hospital. They got me in my gown. I was waiting for surgery, took blood tests and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I, all of a sudden, my father's sitting there with me, and all of a sudden I felt great. I felt
Mm.
like, oh man, I'm feeling really good. It was fine. I'm fine. This is great. And I told my dad, and he goes, really? He says, well, let me go talk to the nurse. The nurse ran in. She goes, oh no, it burst inside me. So all the pressure and everything was off.
Oh
And
boy, yeah.
so I got a septic shock
Mhm.
and whatever else comes along with it. And so they rushed
Mhm.
me in. And I had blacked out because they bring you to a little area first before they go into the operating room. It's like a
Mhm.
prep area.
Right.
And that was it. That's the last thing I remember until I woke up. And that's when my father told me
Mm.
I had passed away. And I don't know how much. I was like 15 minutes for the first one. I was out. And I think it was like 10 minutes on
15
this one.
minutes. Wow. And 10 minutes. That's a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. It's lucky I don't have, brain damage. People say I do, but um, anyhow, eh, we didn't talk much about that because of, there's a traumatic experience for my mom when I was 12. My brother passed away, and we just didn't talk about death much around her then.
Okay.
So we kind of it was kind of a secret, basically, because
Wow.
nobody really knew much about it. And so I didn't talk about it. And I said,
You were
fine, I don't
12
care.
and he was how old?
My brother was 23 when he was murdered in a place called Troy, New York.
Okay.
And then
Mm.
when I was 17, this happened. It's not that long, between the two, and we were pretty much trying not to upset her anymore. She went through a lot with my brother dying in the way he
Mm.
did.
Mhm.
But while I was out, and Julie, a lot of clinical explanations for what happens to people when they die, and they come back to near-death experience that they put quotes around, um, is that oxygen deprivation of the brain causes hallucination. You
Hmm.
know, and by the
Okay.
way, I don't call it a near-death. I call it a near-life experience because I'm dead, so I'm near dead more than I am near life. So, coming back the other ways, that's a near-life experience coming from the other direction. That's
Your
about,
near life
yeah, I
experience,
know.
NLEs.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a whole nother program here for you.
Could be.
But I this time it was it was like I walked into a very bright room. Okay, just walked into a very bright room. It was
Oh,
very quiet.
so no tunnel. You just walk
No,
into a room.
no,
Okay.
I didn't. I don't see it. Somebody else asked me that, and I'm trying to recall, but there's
Don't
just
remember
nothing
that.
there.
Mm.
No, it was just this. It was like fade out of white into the room,
Mm.
which was
Okay.
very bright, didn't hurt your eyes.
Okay.
There was other people standing around, and this woman, probably, I'm gonna say for age purposes, maybe in her 40s,
Mhm.
came to me, and she was dressed, you know, in white, um,
Mhm.
and she introduced herself as Rose,
Okay.
my grandmother. Now, I've never met my grandmother. I never met it. I only knew my grandfather for a very short time.
Mm.
When I was younger, and he passed away when I think I was 6 years old. But I never knew any of my grandparents from either side. I was too young. I was, they were very old, and I was the baby of the family.
Okay.
And she said, Hey, I'm your grandmother. My name is Rose. She says, tell your mom that Tommy's okay. Just say that to her. She'll know what I mean. And
Okay.
Tommy was um, an older brother, older than my brother that was murdered. My brother's name was Joseph, but we called him Butch. This Tommy was another baby that she had
Oh, okay.
that died, and
Okay. Mm,
a lot of trauma with this
mm,
woman. She had a lot of death in her family,
that's,
and
yeah,
of her own family, and that was one of the reasons why you just don't bring things up,
I
you know.
see.
So I went, oh, okay, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of neat here. I like this,
So you did, so you were 23, no, 17 at this time.
I was 17, yeah.
Did you remember that oh, I'm in the hospital and
Nope,
none of that?
none of it.
Okay.
I didn't see my body floating over the thing. I didn't see any of it. It just was,
Hmm.
I was here, then I was there. It's like a blink of the
Did you
eye.
sense time? Like, did you feel like, no, no,
You
interesting.
know, um, I could hear people talking, and again, there was those voices, but they were so soothing, so
Mm,
um, uh, calming.
mm,
You know,
hmm.
it was not. It was nice. So, and I want to go. I was just sitting there, go, well, And she goes, well, you got to go back, Ray, and you need to, go back to your family. You got something else you need to do. Something for you to do.
Okay.
And I said, well, all right, I guess if I have to, And she kind of walked with me, then stopped, and then whoever this was on either side of me were just kind of talking to me again, and I didn't really hear them much, and what they were saying to me. Okay, so I just woke up, and I was in
So these
recovery.
people and Rose were all talking to you?
No, there's like if you were to walk into a room and there's a bunch of people, they're all people, and they're all kind of standing around talking to each other.
Okay.
But there was always this presence on either side of me, you
Oh.
know, that were kind of like had my arms or kind of had me, you
Hmm.
know, and very soothing, very
Like
calming, very
guardians or your helpers, your guides, maybe?
yeah, probably so. I've
I
talked
wonder.
to a few psychics about it that they said that what most probably your spirit guides,
Okay.
could be angel beings, things like that. And so we never talked. My father and I. He told me all about what happened. He says, "You
Hmm.
don't discuss this with anybody, please." And I'm 17. I understood because I remember what happened with my
Right.
mom. Um, so that's the second one. I mean, I hope that's the last one.
My goodness. Yeah,
I
what
think
is with that?
looks like I had enough of that. Yeah, but
Um,
it's
I was gonna say, I wonder if these prepared you or gave you gifts. I've heard of people coming back and they have some clairvoyance or clairaudience and start tapping into some of their psychic abilities.
I actually resisted for a long time and didn't I didn't want to think about it.
Mm,
I didn't even have a thought
mm,
about any of it. And I don't know why. Doesn't really matter. Until I met a friend of mine when I was it was the year that that happened. I was 17, and I was introduced by a friend of mine to her boyfriend, and his name is Ray. He just passed away 3 weeks ago unexpectedly,
wow.
and he was a friend of mine for 51 years, 52 years,
Wow.
and we had just spoken like a week or so before, and said to each other that we've had a great life, and if it wasn't for the other one, we wouldn't have had the adventures that we did. So, excuse me a second. Um, he he actually brought me kicking and screaming into the paranormal.
Really?
Uh,
Okay.
I was kind of, I mean, a lot of things happened. We had a lot of things happen around the house, but my parents never acknowledged them, even though I told them about it. And so it was pretty much squashed. And that's why I just probably didn't have the need or want to, you know, uh,
Yeah,
talk about it. And then I met
sure.
a man that opened up my eyes again and
Mm.
opened up my soul to this, and a couple people that he introduced me to. And from then on, it was just uh, a roller coaster ride into the paranormal supernatural. I just got into it, you know. And so many things have happened uh, that have brought me to where I am today and what I do today.
So Ray, you met him so many years ago. Did he had he always been into the paranormal even back then, or no, he grew into it?
Yeah, from what he
Oh,
told me, he was like
wow.
into it a lot. And I mean, even back at that time,
Interesting. Yeah.
and he even told me that he was very careful what he said to me because he knew I was not receptive, and brought me to these people's house that were just gentle, gentle people and just so nice. And
Mm.
um, th- th- they was this Lee and Al Holstrom. Uh, You couldn't have had a better. I couldn't have had a better mentor or teacher or whatever you want to call them.
Uh-huh.
They just
Nice.
brought this all out in me, and it was like it was fabulous.
What around what age was that?
Think I was probably in my 20s when
Oh,
that
okay.
because I ended
I
up
didn't realize you've been involved in this for so long.
yeah, well, we had a lot of experiences in the house. Well, after I came back, things happened. A lot of things happened.
Okay. Do you want to share any of those moments?
Well, we had our house is very old. It
Mm.
was my grandmother's when she came over from Germany, and then my mother took it over when she passed away. So it was over 100 years old,
Oh.
and we would find uh, we had an open attic, and there was things up there, and there was a rocking chair, and a rocker would rock back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And
Oh.
my father would go up and lay it down to stop it,
Uh-huh.
and a week would go by and it'd be back up again, be rocking back and forth, back.
No. Okay, that's interesting.
And we know there was a little boy, and I know there was a little boy in the house because he played with a ball upstairs, and he would roll it up in the attic, roll it from end to end. And we had to take all the stuff out of the attic so they didn't have anything to roll around and keep us awake. And it was, yeah, so
Wow.
it was pretty
And your
interesting.
folks were like, just didn't really address it or talk about
No,
it too much?
no, my father was just, he was a German man,
Mm.
you know, and he was the atypical or typical German person. He was open, but he was hard to talk to. And he was always good to me. We had no problems. We had a very good life. Um,
Mm.
but that was not talked about at all.
Well, what about grandma telling you to tell your mom about Tommy? What happened with that?
Well, it took a long time for me um, to say anything to her.
Mm.
There's a couple things I had to tell her. When I give you just another thing that happened when I was 12, that's
Sure.
when my brother was murdered.
Hmm.
And I was on an outing with my father at Shea Stadium for the very first ball game
Mm.
ever in my life that I ever went to for
Wow.
Yankees and the Mets. I don't even know who won. I don't know. But at that time, we didn't have cell phones, so they couldn't get a hold of us until we got home.
Hmm.
And when we got home, the priest took aside my father, and I said, "Oh shit, what did I do? Oh, pardon me. What did I
Hmm.
do now?" You know, because
Oh my
I kind
gosh,
of
how
got,
funny that you
I
would think
got
that, but
well, I know what I was when I was a kid. I got in some trouble every once in a while. Nothing major, you know.
oh, all right.
And but um, we were walking home, and my father just, he had his arms around me, and that's not him, to do that. He would
Mm.
walk with you, but he kept me close. And we got there, I found out that my brother had been murdered, and they were going to go identify the body and everything. But
Mm.
after that happened, um, I was sleeping, in the bed, and you have to, it's hard to picture this, but in this house, it's an old house, you had a long staircase of 22 steps. I always counted them,
Mm,
going up and down. I don't know why, it just happened. And then at the top of the landing was a hallway where you could get to the different rooms in the bathroom.
okay.
And right at the top of the stairs was a telephone
Hmm.
desk that, you know, I was sleeping one night, and my bedroom was right across from the telephone in the hall. The phone rang, and it rang weird. It was like a decayed ring, it went "Drrrr," like
Mm,
that. And it woke me up about 2 o'clock in the morning. We had a little clock, so I always looked at the clock, and I went out and I answered the phone. My brother was passed and buried by now.
mhm.
Uh, the voice on it says, I said, hello. And he goes, hi, Ray, this is Butch. Now, back then, if you got a long distance phone call, it sounded like you were a long distance. Your voice was a little in the background. It was very fuzzy. You're
Right.
too young to remember that, but
I
it
do.
was
I
fuzzy.
remember.
Do you really? Well,
I won't
you
tell you
understand.
how old I am, but I'm older than you probably think. Go ahead.
That's not where we discuss it here. So I won't go.
It's very private. No, I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Um, so,
But yeah, the static, I know what you're talking about. Hmm.
and
From long
that's the way
distance.
his voice sounded like. And he said, Ray, this is Butch.
Mhm.
Tell mom and dad I'm okay and I'm doing fine. And
Okay.
you be a good boy. And I half asleep. And I go, all right, you know. So I hung up the phone. I went back to bed. The next morning I wake up and I go downstairs.
Hmm.
And my father's eating breakfast, getting ready. And he goes, who was on the phone last night? I went, oh, I thought I dreamt it, you know.
Right.
And I knew what was going on with my mom, and I wasn't going to say
Okay.
anything. Uh, so I just
Mm.
said, I don't know. It was nobody on the phone. I hung up, and they go,
Oh
okay.
my
And then,
gosh. Golly.
so years
No
later,
other siblings in the household?
no,
That
not at that
okay.
time, not
Okay.
that time. Uh, my father had passed away, and I was married and moved away, and I only lived a couple blocks away from where I grew up. And I
Mm-hmm.
go over there and have coffee with her in the morning, before I went to work.
Mm-hmm.
And one morning I was in there, I had this, I just felt I had to say something to her finally.
Hmm.
And I said, I got to tell you something. We just sit down. And she goes, yeah. And I went, do you remember when Butch died? And she goes, well, of course. And I went,
Mm.
remember the night that when I came downstairs and dad asked me who was on the phone? She goes, yeah. I go, it was Butch. She wanted to tell me, he wanted me to tell you he was fine. He told me to be a good boy. She goes, I knew it was something like that. She goes, why did it take you so long? I said, because we just
Wow.
didn't want to hurt you anymore. She goes, yeah, it's probably about the right time. And
Wow.
and I didn't realize it, but she took a lot of this more in stride and believed more of it than
I guess so.
after I talked to her, it was like a whole different person I'm talking to. Then she
Wow.
just opened up.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, she kept a lot. She sounds like she was a believer all along and knew a lot more that she than she let on.
well, she told me about some things in our family that I was kind of like stunned. We had some Wiccan. There was a supposed sorcerer of my uncle who
You
on
didn't know any
is
of this till you were grown.
no, I found out my dad was a druid. He was a practicing druid.
Oh
And
my goodness.
from it was
You guys.
I got the news
How funny.
article. He was 33 years old.
Oh,
And so it was kind of weird.
wow. Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, I got to look up this word. I think I know what it means, so
Oh
it's just
my
all this weird
goodness.
stuff that was in the family,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't talk about it. It was stuff they wouldn't talk about.
So
So
then did you finally tell her about Tommy or
I actually did.
oh,
It was probably a day or two later. I went over again and I said, well,
wow. Let
I
me
got
tell you
something
something
else
else.
to say. Yeah. Well, since we're on the subject here,
My
and,
goodness.
and I told her, and the thing was, I said, her name was Rose and her face just went white. She went, and I said, she said, and I told her what I said. She goes, Rose was your grandma's name. She says, why? She told me it was your grandma. Well, how come you didn't tell me this? I said, Dad told us not to say anything, not told me to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, that's not right. And she got a little irate. And I go, Mom, I'm sorry, but it was just, not that I forgot about it. I just forgot to be able to even tell you. I just didn't
Mm,
think it was something appropriate until
right.
now. When I saw what happened with the first thing, I realized that she was open
Right.
for it.
Right.
Enough time had passed.
But when you learned about Tommy from Rose, you did not know about Tommy? Is that true, or you did?
No,
You
no, they didn't
didn't.
talk about stuff like that. There was,
So it
she
was news
had
to you. You didn't even then you didn't know you had a baby brother that had passed.
older, yeah, older. And
Or
no,
excuse me, older older brother.
she actually had a stillborn too. That was a girl at the time.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Gee.
See, all this came out, you
Hmm,
know,
it's a
and
lot.
it is, it's amazing. I mean, at that time, a lot of that happened. It happened a lot then. This is the 40s,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm,
We have no idea how many people went through that back
true.
then.
Right. I
And still
know.
now.
People would not talk about it.
No.
Um, I think people are getting a little bit better about being open about these kinds of things, but I mean, it's hard to talk about. Um, okay, so I'm so curious now. So you're learning about, so you're involved much more nowadays with the paranormal.
Oh,
It,
yeah. Yeah.
so,
I had some experiences that actually kind of pushed me. I mean, I'm a musician. I've been involved with frequencies and vibrations and all that my
oh,
whole life. I
oh, okay.
started I was 7 years old. I started accordion. That's what first one,
Oh,
the
okay.
Polish, she's too fat for me, too fat for me. It's a great thing. I'll tell you. And I had a lot of fun with that. And the
So
Italian stuff.
out of curiosity, what instruments do you play?
I play piano, all keyboard instruments and percussion instruments. I teach music on the side. I'm a vocal coach,
Wow.
and I
Okay.
teach, piano, guitar, and drums. So it's fun.
Nice.
Mostly
Mm.
kids, and I love it.
Oh, wonderful.
They keep me challenged, but
Hmm. Keep you young, they say.
sometimes some of them do. Some do, not all.
So how did this all relate to you being a musician and involved in frequencies, end up relating to what you're doing now?
Well, something happened about 25 years ago. Uh, when my when my wife and I would get sick, we would go downstairs and sleep on the couch in the living room to not bother the other person because we both worked. And
Hmm.
if you're not feeling well, you're up and down, you're tossing and turning, you're
Sure.
hacking, you're sneezing, coughing, and so we go downstairs and do all our bodily functions down there, to
Yeah.
keep
Right.
keep it, keep you sane. So my wife went downstairs. She wasn't feeling well, and she slept downstairs. And it was actually a Friday night, and I woke up. You know how your eyes slam open sometimes, and I looked over the clock. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. Seems to happen a lot at 2 o'clock. I got this
Mm.
2 o'clock thing going on. Anyhow, uh, I went downstairs, and as I was going down the stairs, I hear this female voice. Julie, honestly, I wish I could demonstrate. It was the most beautiful thing. It's still present. It's even talking about it, I get chills about it.
Mm.
It was a young, very melancholy
Mm.
female voice, loud, but not hurt your ears, just present all around you.
Like
And then
surround
talking,
sound, kind of.
yeah, 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 yeah. And she sang six notes in triplets, three of them. There's la 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 la. That's excuse my voice. I mean, I would sing for you, but I think that would hurt the people's ears. And when I was coming down the stairs, I heard it. I got down to the bottom of the stairs. She sang it again. I got into the living
Okay.
room, and she sang it again.
Huh.
And it is coming from
Okay.
where I'm sitting right now, which is our dining. And of course, my wife was on the thing, and I turned to her and I said, did you hear that? She goes, yeah, somebody's singing. And she was like, half asleep and not feeling good. And she woke back.
Turn it off.
Yeah, yeah. What are you doing? What are you? And, so the next morning we got up, and because I'm a musician, I remembered the notes.
Sure. Yep. Hmm.
Honestly, I can't tell you how beautiful it was. It was just incredibly beautiful.
An
This,
angel singing, perhaps. I
I
don't
would,
know.
I don't know either. It'd be nice to know who it
Yeah.
is or what it was. But I had gotten some curious messages. After that happened, all of a sudden things started to fall into place. Some of the things that happened in my life that periodically would come and give me a boost to do something. This
Oh,
did,
okay.
and started me thinking. Now, what I did for a living for 30 years was I was a communications engineer for acoustical and radiophonic type
Hmm.
equipment, uplink downlink service for the military satellites. I did all that. And what I engineered was protection against EMPs. You know what EMP is? Electro. Okay. Magnetic pulses,
Yep.
electrostatic pulses, radio frequency interference equipment. So I built things to stop all that to
Huh.
protect this equipment.
Wow.
When that happened, I started thinking, and I had paranormal already. I mean, I was always thinking about it. I didn't really do much with it except think a lot about it. It was like it haunted me for 20 years. Like 20 years. I was never off my mind. These notes kept going through my head. It
Mm.
kept bugging me. I wouldn't go through a week without thinking about 2, 3, or 4 times through all that time.
Interesting.
And
Wow.
finally, one person came to me and said, he came in and out of my life within 6 months. And actually, it was all I needed to get me
Hmm.
to build the device that I have today.
Okay.
And
Wow.
that's really, what was the catalyst in this whole endeavor.
Interesting. Oh, so how long ago was that? That when did you start building the device? And then
Well,
please tell
actually,
us about the device.
well, actually, I only built it 3 years ago after
Okay.
20 years of researching
Hmm.
and thinking about this and reading articles and going and talking to people at different universities that did some studies and talking to everybody I could, mostly psychics, intuitives, things like that I could chat with, doing
Right.
some minor experimentation with they're good friends of mine. I love them dearly. And and they go, okay, what other guinea pig thing do you want me to do today? And I went, oh yeah, well, nothing really, but would you sit here for a minute? I want to put this thing on your head, you
Uh,
know.
yeah.
And what I did, what I did with them was, I sat with them in all this information I started to gather and started to look at. And because of my background and all I was an engineering instructor as well. So I instructed four engineers to be
Oh,
engineers. So I went to a lot of extensive schools and everything, and I was able to use a lot of this. And I
cool.
I put an EEG on one of my psychic friends' heads,
Hmm.
and watched the brainwave patterns as she went into trance to see if there
Okay.
was anything going on. And we found a parasitic frequency that was on top of her normal brain activity because we did a baseline. Okay. Like you sitting here right now, just,
Right.
a calm state baseline. She would just, do her cleanse and,
Hmm.
and then we go into, she would be doing somebody else and I'd be watching this thing. And it was most amazing thing to see this. And I said,
Hmm.
okay, so there's something else. There's some kind of communication that's happening at a theta band frequency, which is a
Okay.
specific brainwave frequency. And that's when I started to build out on this thing and figure out how
Wow.
to get this. I wanted to build a piece of equipment that isn't, it's not for sale, by the way. I'm not selling it. I
Mm.
won't even continue. I won't even bother because some people ask me, oh, you should give this out to the world. You should do this. I said, no, it's it's not what I built it for. It's not. for general. I help people. I do events to build, to gain some revenue, to pay for some of the things that I'm brainstorming to put into the device. But um, I wanted to try to make paranormal a real scientific discovery and not what you're seeing all over the place. It's
Well,
just,
what have you, what progress have you made in the last 3 years with this device? I mean, I'm interested in what your plans were, and then how things came to fruition for you with this.
well, I built it to monitor, to gather the information and of what energies are involved during a paranormal supernatural event. Because
Okay.
it's all different. It's like anything else,
I would think. Yep.
and it is. And I was able to um, actually um, capture what I call event um, triggers in specific frequency bands. And what I did was I built into it a lookup table that says, okay, here's the radios, here's the ham bands, here's the aeronautical, here's the military bands, here's the CB sets, here's the commercial. All right, here's the what they call beacon radio, which is just what radio stations and TV stations put out as their it's like a Morse code thing. So
Hmm.
I knew all this, and also what are the natural energies that come out from outer space, like the EM bands, the magnetic bands, all the different kinds of frequencies, because we're being bombarded by them all the time. We
Hmm.
just don't hear them.
Yeah.
And basically that's what radio telescopes do for you. They're able to hear all this stuff, and everything in the universe, everything, you, me, my pair of glasses, everything is vibrating and gives off its own tone. It's like you are a guitar string,
Mm,
and you're being plucked all the time. And if
mm,
you could hear everything around you, it'd be like a concert of tones, because we have to vibrate or else we fall apart.
hmm.
That's how they stay together. It's almost, it's the glue that keeps you together. In physics, I'm into physics. I like quantum mechanics and stuff like that too. So I'm working with that. But
So when people say you have put off a good vibe, it could be literal.
yeah. Well, there's an old song, you give me good vibrations, But I'm a '60s boy, So I went through the
Yeah.
hippie era, and that was like, hey man, you're giving off bad vibes,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and that
funny.
was before they stoked up a doobie, So because
Well,
then after that, everybody's got great vibes.
oh yeah. Do, do you want to share any unusual, stories from using the device with people?
Well, we get shocked a lot. My daughter and I are partners. My daughter Kira and I are partners in this. She's an intuitive. She's she's been talking to spirits since she was 4 in this house. We have a
Wow.
bunch, and she actually identified one that was in here and went and saw him here, and
Uh-huh.
then went with her mother to the library and found him. And it's the guy who built this house. In fact, the
Whoa.
interesting thing is this house was built by a man named Peter Fuller. He sold it to his cousin, who we bought it from, who is our cousin. It's been in the family since it was built.
Oh, cool.
I found my grandfather's pictures up in the attic in a box. My mother identified him. She had the exact same one too. So, like, holy crap, really
Man.
cool vibes, man.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but so yeah, it's hard to say how many there are. It's like I'm looking at well, I'm going to say Fort William Henry for one. We went there, and interesting thing. When I first had this, I went to a place. This man that came in and out of my life that pushed me forward
Mhm.
invited me to go with him to um, a. Um, it was an investigation he was doing. It's more than one time he's been there, but it's a very, very big hot spot. It's incredible what these people go through, and now they're friends of mine. They live down there. The Scanlon family. They're very nice people. But Katie, who was the psychic that I knew, we actually met at a very simple thing at a place called Professor Java's up here. The person that put on this little soiree was helping the movie theater there um, promote the newest Ghostbusters film,
Mm.
the one with the ladies in it.
Yeah.
And he asked me to come with my little device and play, and we played there.
Okay.
With it, and it wasn't fully developed. It was still an infant thing. And she
Right.
sat down, and she's very intuitive, very well, she's psychic, and she sat in this one room, and I had this thing on. I had the squawk box going, and I was monitoring us. And I said, "Listen, something's here. I can see it here." And she goes, "Oh, I'm feeling it." And she starts talking,
Hmm.
and something's flicking her hair. And then the voice is coming over, and I can't say what it said. It was very nasty to her.
Mm.
Uh, Called her the H word, the C word. It was
Wow.
very verbal, and didn't like her at all. Didn't
Okay.
like her at all. And she said, "Okay, we're going to close this because this isn't good." So,
So you can hear, how do you hear this? How does
oh,
this thing work?
I
Like,
have an algorithm built into it so that it acts like some of the other squawk boxes that you hear. I guess you call them ghost boxes. I call them squawk.
okay. Okay. Okay.
But with this one, it's actually scanning radio frequencies to pick up. Because people ask me why it doesn't seem like the spirits use electronic devices to communicate. Because they are electronic. They're electric. Our spirit is an energy.
Mm.
Electronics is the easiest way for people who are not intuitive to be able to be contacted.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. That's how I see it. So we did some background to find out what was going on. And this was an old uh, was it Shaker house, Quaker house.
Oh, okay.
Shakers, excuse me, Shaker.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Shakers were up here in Albany. And it was a
Okay.
Shaker house in the property. And what we found out was that the property that we were on was owned by this farmer. The name escapes me, but it doesn't really matter. The farmer had a wife, two children, and she even said, "There's a woman here, and there's two children." And he kept on saying, the red, evil, evil, the red, evil," and she's
Mm.
got red hair. Okay, so this Kate has red hair. So I went back to her and I said, "This is what's going on." And what happened was, um, the they didn't have pastors or reverends, but they had like elders,
Mhm.
and this one elder was the farmer, but the other elder had an affair with the wife, and he caught her and murdered her and the two children and the pastor and the other younger person. And this bad entity was there and hated this Kate because her hair was red.
Oh, okay.
So he identified with her red hair and
Right.
her fair skin with that woman.
Mm.
So, of course, we get out of the place, and I'm sitting in the car with Kate. We're talking, and she punches me out. She goes, "What the heck did you build here? Holy crap! It scared the crap out of me." And I go, wait a minute. You talk to spirits all the time, and this scared you?" She says, "Yeah, but not that up close and personal."
Huh.
And then the evolution
Interesting.
of it just kept going, and then I built it into what you've seen on the website. Um, but I would say that some of the best things came out of personal interviews, which I really I can't speak about because I don't have permission for the
Oh,
people.
right. Right.
But I can tell you that there was a lot of closures that happened, and the people were very nice, and they even we're friends now, and they talk to me, and they were happy
So they can
for
hear
something.
their loved ones ask
Yes,
questions that needed to be
yes.
resolved, those kinds of things.
Yeah, one woman, her husband had passed away 3 months prior to her getting in contact with me. Her mother knew of me and contacted me. We went over her house, and my daughter and I were there for about 3 hours. And for 2.5 of those hours, they sat in front of this device and had a conversation with this man.
Wow.
He came through and said, "Is Douglas here?" And they said, and it said Air Force. Now, there's so many of these words that come across, but these are all new. When you get new words that you've never heard before in 2 years, then you know that something else is coming through.
Okay.
So she said, well, he was Air Force. I went, oh, well, talk.
Does it sound like their voice or somebody else's voice? Is it
Sometimes it does.
female, male?
Male. Well, there's so many different voices come through. They like step on each other at times.
Okay.
One thing that I had just built in last year that was, an epiphany was, and I've always felt that I've had somebody guiding me with this too. Yes, do I have the technical ability and the know-how to put electronics together? Of course I do. I have a business on the side. I repair electronic equipment, band equipment, all kinds of things. So I love repairing. I like fixing. I like building. So it's just part of me for my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I built in this past year, which is like incredible. I don't know if these things are going to work. I just do it. It's a transcriber that is built in to monitor all the voices come by. And
Oh,
all,
yeah.
all of a
Cool.
sudden, Julie, this thing is reading full sentences. You ask a
Wow.
question, and there are delays. You have to be patient, and you can't keep firing off a bunch of questions. You have to
Be patient.
give the
Wait.
question and wait a little while, and then let the
Wow.
answer come through. And many, many times they'll validate things with specific information that only you or I would know.
Wow.
I I did it for my friend Ray the week of his passing, and I said to him, I said, Ray, if anybody can poke through this veil, you can. Come and talk to me. Now, the week before he passed away, we were talking, and uh, I tried to stop myself, but I had a little quirk that I go, dude, every once in a while, I say, hey, dude, dude,
Yep.
and I don't mean to do it. It's one of those little quirky things. Well, he busted my chops that when we were talking on the phone, and he said, hey, dude, hey, what's doing, dude? And I'm all
Gotcha.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. Well, I said, Ray, if you're here and you can speak to me, you can poke through that. Are you okay? And he goes, I'm okay, dude. And I went, holy shit.
How long ago was this?
About 3 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness.
And I knew it. Now, a lot of people are going to say, how do you know it's them? How do you know that you're not being lied to by spirits? How do you know?
True.
Nobody knows, but the inflection, the
Hmm.
type of voice, I think that the person that's talking to you because you're so connected to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Boy, it sounds like they can come through. That was pretty quickly after passing to be able to come through. Is
I was
that
surprised.
unusual or is that normal?
I don't know what's usual. I
Okay.
really don't. I didn't expect it, but it happened.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
great.
I've done other people that have gone. Well, it was 3 months, and she was talking to her husband, and he was busting on her, saying things and she goes, oh, that's him, that's the way he talks. And he was
Oh
talking
my
to his mom,
goodness.
talking to his son. His son came out and talked to him. His daughter was sitting there. His aunt was there. It was, and they're just yakking
So that
away
can they
like,
be passed for a decade or more and they can come through?
well, at the fort. And if you get a chance, go on there and take a look at the fort. It was the very first one we did there. What happened, we were there, and I had one of my psychic friends there with me. Her name is Tracy Flutie, and she came with us. She's been a staunch supporter from very beginning. I've known her most of my life, and she sits down, and we had the vice president of the fort, because we were demonstrating this so we could do something. We've done a lot of events since then with them. So we were talking, and there was people that are tour guides that came in that knew and have
Hmm.
been there forever and
Hmm.
knew the spirits that were there. Have
Okay.
had conversations. Just they talk to them. I don't know if they answer them, but they know they're there. They make
Yeah.
themselves known, and they say, okay, so and so. So
Right.
we're talking to it. And one interesting thing was that when I first had this, I had it in the Squawk Box was talking. I call it Squawk Box. I'm not calling it the Ghost Box or Spirit Box, but the Squawk Box was talking in English. When I brought it to Herkimer, where I had the first encounter, it started talking in German. And we found out that Herkimer is a German settlement in the
Oh,
1800s.
okay.
Then we take it from there, and the following week we go to Fort William Henry in Lake George, New York, and guess what language started coming out? French and Indian War. What would you hear? French.
Oh my goodness.
And then I had to put a translator on it
Yeah.
to translate. Now we can't translate everything, but we get a really good rendition of what's being said. And now we had an Indian shaman with us once, and she said, "You're getting Iroquois coming through." And she starts telling us what
Oh
they're
my,
saying.
wow.
So the thing is, we can't hear or decipher everything, all the voices, because there's so many of them. But yeah, we're sitting there, and this guy Sam, who is the vice president, he's now the president of this corporation group, and a guy named Fred, who has been there 100 years. He's an old timer there, and plus a couple other people. I think one guy's name was Steve, and there's a couple other people, but they were talking, they were asking, and some of the questions that they asked, they were coming right back with, there's a lot of red here, which red coats, okay,
Oh,
and how many soldiers they were asking. You have to see the video. It's pretty interesting. One of the interesting things that happened was we were talking, and Sam, who was one of the fort guys, said, "Who is the spirit that's in the gift shop that keeps moving the chimes around?" And a voice came and said, "Christine." And we said, "Oh, hi, Christine. What, you have a last name?" It said, "Dufresne." French name. So Christine Dufresne. He said, "Oh, Christine, that's great that we have your name." So he asked, "Who is the person that's by the stairs coming down to the dungeon?" And that's where we were. The dungeon was a triage place as well for all the war victims that came down and either died or had, amputations done or surgery done. And it was a pretty traumatic area. And he said, "Mark, I'm Mark." We said, "Well, hi, Mark." We're putting names to these people. We started talking to Christine more because she's very verbal. And at one point, at that time, and even other times, that there's male dominance, okay? And there's male dominance there too. And there was someone that was there that didn't like Christine talking to us. Now we found out who she was, that she was how do I put this? A woman of pleasure for the fort. Okay.
Sure.
And Mark was in love with her because he was protecting her
Oh,
during this whole conversation. She would go to say
okay.
something, he would say, "Christine, stop. Christine, stop." It
Okay.
was wild. And
Wow.
so,
So we can listen to this though. You have this on your site, did you say?
yeah, I posted it. You're going to have to really watch it, because you can put this a caption thing that you can put on for the video that will give you all the voices, but you'll be able to see people's lips moving and discern
Yeah,
between
yeah. Yeah,
them
you can
and yeah.
closed
And you can
caption. I
see,
use that all the time for mine.
yeah,
I
I
like
didn't
it.
know it was on. I saw it was on. I said, I don't remember doing that, but anyhow.
Yeah, I really want people to be able to connect with you. So we got to get your website. We got to get, because you have a Facebook page too, right? And
Yes. Yeah,
I mean,
website.
I'm going to put all these in the video description, these links. But
Absolutely.
what is the name of the
It's
site?
it's the Paranormal Scientific Research Lab on Facebook. So if you put that in there, you'll see Facebook, and I'll give you the link to go directly to it. so they can
Okay.
do that.
Yes.
And also, if somebody wants to discuss or talk or anything like that, I'll give you an email address that you can send your questions. I had so many of them before. It was great.
Okay, yes, absolutely. I mean, this has been so great. I know we've gone over time, but oh well.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
We
get
do
rambling.
that. That happens sometimes. Well, you have a lot. There's so much information. And before, oh, and you wrote a book. Well, more than one book. So
Yeah, it's
yes.
it's my first endeavor. I wanted to do it my whole life, and so I did it. But it's called Home Spirit Home, and it's 10 true stories of the paranormal during my lifetime. And of course, the one story was what we talked about in here. And funny thing is, I didn't put the second one because I didn't feel it proper, so that's
Oh,
not in there. But
okay.
there's 10. I got a bunch of them. A lot of stuff happened during all that time.
Okay. We're going to put that link in the
Mhm.
description too. And before we have to sign off, I just want to give you the last, words. Anything else on your heart or anything you're thinking, oh, gee, I wanted to share one more thing with the listeners.
The one thing I want to tell you is what I've learned in all the time that I've been with this device and in my life too, but mostly with this device. I'm not afraid of dying.
Mm,
I'm not dying. Death is a word that the humans have to describe someone leaving this world. That's all it is. On the other side, there's no such thing. And you're actually, it's life after life and not life after death. And I'm
mm.
happy for my experience and happy for being able to communicate as I am now with these people. And I'm not a ghostbuster. I don't hunt ghosts. I don't like that terminology. I think it's disrespectful. They're people. I know that you take with you. You say people say you can't take it with you, but you can. You take the treasures of who you are, your personality, your humor,
Mhm.
your thoughts, your opinions, all goes with you. That's the real treasure in life.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love that. Life after life. We need to change a few things here. The near life experience
I
and life
know.
after life. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ray, for hanging out. The time has gone by way too fast. I think we could probably easily talk another hour. Maybe we will.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do another one of these. And
love
thank
it.
you. Yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah.
great. Um, and thank you so much to everyone watching. This has been Julie McVey with Unordinary Made Ordinary, and I hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating interview. And if you enjoyed this, of course, give it a thumbs up and, or hit the like button or whatever. And then if you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel and, you can hit the bell icon and you'll be alerted to future videos. So I just hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are on the planet um, or off the planet. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.